What is up, guys? In this video, I just want to go over the University of California's transfer personal insight question, otherwise known as the transfer essays. And in this video, I'm not gonna go over how I'm gonna approach each essay prompt, but I'm gonna go over the 7 insight questions, personal insight questions, and let you know which questions I would personally choose if I was writing these essays again. I remember when I was applying for UCs as a community college transfer student, I also had to do these questions, these personal insight questions. But let's go over these 7 personal insight questions because you have to only choose 3 out of the 7. You don't have to write all 7. And I just realized that the maximum is 350 words. So I believe when I was applying, it was actually 500 words. So I guess they reduced it to 350. So let's go over these essay questions. I'm going to copy paste it onto this Word document so it's much cleaner for me to look at. So I'm not going to read over these right now. I'm just going to copy paste it real quick. But just by glancing at it, I can tell that it's pretty much the same prompts that I did as well. So I don't really think the UCs really change up their prompts too much. But let's go. All right, so I'm going to read over these prompts one by one. And I'm just going to see which ones I like and which ones I don't like. So let's go with number 1. Describe an example of your leadership experience in which you have positively influenced others, helped resolve disputes, or contributed to group efforts over time. So to be honest, this prompt is a classic college prompt about leadership skills, but at the same time, it's a pretty difficult topic to write about. Let's be real. Not everyone is a leader. Not everyone has leadership experience. And I for sure can say that when I was a transfer student, when I was in high school, I didn't really have much leadership experiences. So I would say that for me personally, if I don't have any positions of leadership, then I would not do this prompt because this is a very specific prompt that's hard to write about. Whereas if you are a leader, let's say you're a captain of the football team or, captain of the band or whatever group or club that you're in, then this can be a very, very good prompt for you. But for the majority of people in this world, this is a very difficult prompt to write. So right off the bat, I personally would avoid this prompt. So I'm just gonna mark this red just to say I'm probably gonna avoid it. All right, number 2. Every person has a creative side and it can be expressed in many ways: problem solving, original and innovative thinking, and artistically, to name a few. Describe how you express your creative side. So right off the bat, this is a very good prompt to write about. It's a very specific prompt to each individual, talking about a creative side. Everyone has a creative side, or most people have a creative side. And by creative, it's not just related to art. It's not just related to like drawing and painting. It can be literally anything. Do you like cooking? That can be a creative side. Do you like music, playing guitar, playing piano? That could be a creative side. Do you like sports, but do you like coaching sports, drawing up plays, making strategies and whatever? That's a creative side. So for me personally, this prompt about this creative side is a prompt that I would personally choose myself if I was writing the transfer essays again. So since I like this one, I'm gonna mark this as green. So red is the ones I'm gonna avoid, and then green is the ones that I like. So let's see number 3. What would you say your greatest talent or skill? Have you developed any? How have you developed and demonstrated that talent over time? So this is a pretty good prompt as well. Here I'm gonna mark it green. This is kind of similar to number 2, whereas this is specifically saying your creative side, whereas this is saying your talent. Your talent can be creative, vice versa. If I had to choose a prompt talking about a skill, I would probably choose this one over number 2 because this is just very direct and to the point. It's saying, dude, what's your greatest talent and skill? How have you developed it? Number 2 is also asking about your skills, but more of the creative side. And there's like other filler words that you have to get into, like problem solving, originality, innovative thinking, etc. So for me, if I had to choose out of these 3 prompts, it would be number 3 so far. But the important thing about this particular prompt number 3, is it's actually a 2-part question. It's what's your greatest greatest talent, and then how have you developed it? So it's not just saying, hey, what did you do? What skill do you have? But how have you progressed? How have you developed your skills? How have you improved your skills and talents over time? So two-part question, very important part, very key part to take note of, but at the same time, a very good prompt indeed. All right, so let's look at number 4. Describe how you have taken advantage of a significant educational opportunity or worked to overcome an educational barrier that you faced. So this is a pretty good prompt as well. I am going to mark this green. Actually, for number 2, I'm actually going to do this red because I like number 3 over number 2. So far, 3 and 4s are the ones I would choose. Number 4 is a pretty good prompt because it's telling you to describe kind of a hardship, a difficulty that you face. It doesn't really specifically say difficulty, but it does say an educational barrier. So for example, let's say that you're low income, your parents don't make much money, whereas a lot of your peers and your friends, their parents got money, so they have advantages to tutors, learning centers, etc. But since you don't have those opportunities, you have to take the extra step to study independently, to do your own work, whereas your friends are, they have the advantage of a tutor or whatnot. So if that's a similar scenario that you have, that's something you can talk about. It doesn't always have to relate to money or stuff like that. It can also be stuff like you got a scholarship. It's a significant educational opportunity. Let's say you worked hard, your GPA was good, you got some sort of scholarship or grant, and because of this scholarship, you were able to increase your educational experience in whatever school that you're at. So this question can be said in a lot of different ways. You can talk about this on a lot of different angles. So if I was the one writing these transfer essays, so far I would choose number 3 and number 4. But let's see what number 5 is. Number 5, describe the most significant challenge you have faced and the steps you have taken to overcome this challenge. How has this challenge affected your academic achievement? This question is kind of similar to number 4, I'd say, but at the same time a little bit different. Prompt 5 is directly asking you what challenge did you have to overcome? So for example, you can use the same example that I talked about at number 4. Let's say parents are low income, you didn't have the opportunities, several educational factors that other people have. So for example, like tutoring or learning center, SAT prep center, stuff like that. But for those who are watching this video, I suggest not to talk about the stuff I just said, because if you do, then everyone else is going to be writing about the same thing. So you have to approach this in a unique angle. You can't just write some cliche statement that everyone talks about. Luckily, since everyone is different, since we all have different lifestyles, since we all come from different upbringings, you can talk about a specific unique challenge that's unique to yourself, So I don't personally know you guys, but I'm sure a lot of you guys or all of you guys have faced some difficulty in your life, and talk about this difficulty and then talk about how it has affected your academic achievement. Why were you able to do well because of the difficulty you faced? Pretty good question. It's like a personal reflection question. Number 6, what have you done to make your school or community a better place? This one, immediately, I personally wouldn't do it. This is kind of the same thing as number 1. What have you done to make your school a better place? I mean, dude, you're like, what, 19, 20 years old? Like, what could you have possibly done? Unless, like I said, you're a captain or a leader. So like I said, unless you have some leadership position or you're greatly involved in the school, it's a pretty tough question to write about. You can talk about stuff like, oh, I picked up trash and I cleaned up after myself, but I mean, yeah, it does make your school a better place, but does that make it a strong essay? I personally don't think so. So right off the bat, number 1, number 2, number 6 are the ones that I would personally avoid. And this doesn't mean that you can't write about it. Everyone is different. But if I was applying to UCs as a transfer, 1, 2, 6 are the ones that I wouldn't write about. So number 7, let's see this last question. Beyond what has already been shared in your application, what do you believe makes you stand out as a strong candidate for admissions to the University of California? This is a good question. I'm gonna mark it green. So basically, this is like a free-for-all type of question. There's no specific thing that they're asking other than the fact that what makes you a good candidate? What makes us choose you to get into the University of California? So you can literally write about anything that you want. But for me, I feel like you should write about something that will stand out. So for example, if your GPA is not as high, you can say stuff like, oh, my grades weren't the best, they aren't the most competitive, but the reason why my GPA was lower is because I was spending a lot of time in my clubs. So for example, if you started some kind of music club at community college, because of your passion for music and wanting to teach music to others who aren't too familiar with music, you were spending so much time at your club that, your grades were a little bit slipping. Stuff like that. It doesn't even have to be related to that. But for a question like this, even though it's a free-for-all type of question, you can't just write a cliche basic thing that everyone writes about. And honestly speaking, that's pretty hard for anyone to figure out, what is cliche and what is not cliche. But my advice to you is just make your best judgment. I know for a fact that writing stuff about church volunteering or going to Mexico and helping, build churches, stuff like that, is very cliche. I'm saying this from experience because I wrote that too for my first couple essays, until I realized that a lot of my friends and peers were also writing about similar situations. And that's when I realized, oh damn, this is pretty damn cliche. I don't want to make this video too long, but I feel like it is over 10 minutes. But if I was personally a UC transfer wanting to go to a UC, prompts 3, 4, 5, and 7 would be the prompts that I would probably write about. Just to clarify, you only have to choose 3 of the 7, which gives you a lot of flexibility. So my advice is read each prompt carefully, choose the ones that are most related to your own personal life, and don't be cliche.